I want to welcome all of you officially. I'm Dave Rosendahl from MindFire, and I'm joined today, of course, by my colleague and friend, Chris Lien from BCC Software. And today is actually part two of what we think is a three-part series. Maybe we'll do more. We'll see what you think coming out of this. But if you missed part one, where we went into the IMB tracking fundamentals, and if you missed that and would like to see that, drop part one in the chat if you missed it, and we'll make sure to send you that link so that you can catch up with where we were in part one. I know, though, from looking at the registration questions, we have many of you signed up today. A lot of you are wondering, as we talk about Omnichannel and all of this change that's coming our way, is this stuff too complex for my team? How do I prove ROI? How do I get my arms around this? How do I do it as efficiently and cost effectively as possible? And today's really answering that. We're going to try to fast track your Omnichannel journey in three ways today. There's three things we're going to hit on. Number one, I'm going to ask Chris to take us behind the scenes in terms of what's going on at USPS, as there's a lot of change underway now, and there's changes upcoming. So we're going to start there. And then we're going to transition into how to use informed delivery as your digital on-ramp. Think of it as your entry point into Omnichannel. And then most importantly, Chris and I are going to talk about how do you start to shift the conversations that you're having with your clients about price. Yes, cost, price is important, but how do we shift from price to purpose with concrete proof and data that you and your sales teams can actually use to show the value of direct mail? Chris, you and I both believe that the future of direct mail is at the intersection, right, of physical and digital. Some call it digital. And I know, folks, if you're here in the room with us, you're probably tuned into that. And you are leading here as a group because you need to lean into this. What we see in the industry is that those of you who are doing this are becoming more than just printers, if I could say that. You're becoming strategic partners who can prove ROI to your clients. I know that's easier said than done, but that's why BC and MindFire have partnered to make your life easier. Chris, why don't you say hello to everyone, and then we'll jump right into the material today.
All right, thank you, Dave. Hey, good afternoon, good morning. Glad to have everyone here on the webinar today with us. Again, as you said, this is part two with it. And I want to remind everyone, the reason that Dave and I are doing these webinars, the reason why we're talking about multi-channel, omni-channel marketing, the reason why we're talking about the increased value of the mail is we care about you and your business. We want everyone to survive and thrive. That's what we want, right? It breaks my heart when I see customers that leave this industry or they get gobbled up by the lions and they say, I don't want anyone left behind. I want everybody to have an opportunity to grow their business. And the best way to grow your business is to add value. That's a big push that we've been talking about. I've been talking about it at some of the recent events. We'll touch on those. But it's really comes down to this. What's your value add strategy for 2025 and into 2026? Do you have a value add strategy? What are you doing to demonstrate to those customers? Because you know that you're doing something for them. That's a large part of it. So glad to be here with Dave as always. We have a great relationship and interactive together. But more importantly, this is for you. This is about you. How do we help grow your business, and how can we help you craft and deliver a value add strategy?
Chris, before we get into those USPS updates, take us back into what we did in the last session. Just give us a quick recap why we feel that the foundation starts with intelligent mail barcode tracking.
Yeah, thank you. So when we started first, we talked about tracking mail pieces. And when the intelligent mail barcode first came out, it was pretty transformative, but it took a while for the industry. Again, technologically, my background's computer science, so I was geeking all over on the concept of what we were doing with this IMB. But it's a game changer for the mailing industry now, because now we can actually see where the mail pieces are in their process, right? The days of, oh, don't worry, the check's in the mail. Now I can see if the check's in the mail. I can see where these pieces are, mail pieces are. I can see, of course, packages with that. But I saw a lot of mail service providers dragging their feet, Dave, in leveraging mail tracking, saying that I'm only going to do that if my customer asks me for it, or I'm only going to do mail tracking to cover my butt, and what I call the accountability value proposition. Hey, I did my job, the mail's in the system. You got a problem, call 1-800-LOSE-THE-JOY, soon to be Dave Steiner. But you've missed the opportunity. You've missed the opportunity. You should be tracking everything, right? You should be tracking mail pieces for all of your customers' mailings. Not just because there's a way for you to be able to maybe add additional value or even get paid for it. And I've seen some do that. It creates a foundation. If I know where the piece is, again, the visibility in the system, I can now start to make business decisions. If I know where the predictability of arrival is, that gives me that opportunity to prime the mailbox. That'll be a large part of what we're talking about. And what it does is it takes us away from that spray and pray mentality. I'm not just spraying a barcode and praying it arrives. I can see where that piece is on the journey. And if it's scanned on average 7 touch points, that's key. By the way, Dave and listeners, the Postal Service is going to dramatically continue changing the network, right? They're going to be removing NDC discounts in July 13th. Okay,
Yep.
it's part of this rate change. And I'll talk a little bit more about the July 13th on that. That's impactful to a lot of mail service providers. If you've been dropping a lot of your mail off at the NDC because you don't have the volume to go lower into the SCF rate, your cone of uncertainty has widened, right? So you need to know where those pieces are so that you can set the proper expectation for your customers when they're going to get in home, because you may be entering more mail at the origin and have less visibility on it. That's why I need you tracking all these mail pieces. Helps us to hold the Postal Service accountable, gives the visibility for our customers.
I see, Swiler, you asked rhetorically here, if you're not tracking your mail, why not? So folks, be vulnerable. Drop that in the chat. I would like to know, if you're not using IMB to track all of the mail or to track any mail, what is it? What's holding you back? If you're on the sales team, if you're in production or operations, we want to hear all those varied points of view, because that's useful for Chris and I as we continue to evolve our understanding of how to help you. Now, Chris, here's the roadmap. We brought this up in the last session. I'm sure everybody, if you were here, you remember this. Step 1 was where we covered what Chris just talked about, the intelligent mail barcode. And today we're shifting gears, if you will, into step 2, which is utilizing informed delivery and the USPS promotions to fast track your omnichannel journey. That's where we're going to start to talk about the priming of the mailbox that Chris just alluded to. Also today, we're going to give a preview of step 3, which is hitting the gas with mastering omnichannel marketing and driving maximum attribution mileage, as we call it. Notice how each of these things builds on the preceding step. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we will touch on that towards the end of the conversation today to tease part 3, which is upcoming here shortly. Now, before we get on to the details of that, though, Chris, I promised everyone that we would go behind the scenes here. I want to really address a lot of the questions that came in advance around folks sensing the same sorts of market shifts that we see. I saw Tyler ask about whether the new PMG is going to lean into supporting marketing mail. We can't read the future, but people are curious about that. You know, others are asking, how do we get our sales team on board with all these changes at USPS? And frankly, those questions plus what you and I are seeing really tells me that something fundamental is shifting in our industry right now. So for starters, you and I were both at MPF. I know many of you were here who are here with us. We're also there. We were also at D-Scoop Edge just a few weeks back. So Chris, bring us into what we're hearing across the industry on the whole, and then we'll get into USPS ideas specifically here. What are you hearing?
So I'm going to start first with MPF, obviously near and dear to my heart, because I serve as on the board of directors for MPF. But I got to tell you, that was the largest turnout since 2008. That was a big turnout in Nashville when we met for the National Postal Forum. But more importantly, from these huge numbers of people coming forward and participating, was this tangible buzz, this level of excitement. Now, maybe it was because we weren't getting yelled at, right, on Monday morning session, as we may have been with the prior PMG. But no, in all seriousness, I heard a lot of positivity. I heard a lot of excitement. We had people that were sharing information, sharing on tips and how they're leveraging postal promotions, how they're taking advantage of work share opportunities, how they're changing the narrative on direct mail piece attribution. And that was exciting. You know, the other thing that was exciting with MPF is we had 100 college students, Dave, 100 college students that came to MPF and participated in something called the Direct Effect Challenge. These are bright minds, folks. These are the people that are going to be coming into our space, into our industry. And think of it, you had 100 students there designing mail pieces that took advantage of these promotions and that were really compelling in their call to action and how they were working. And they were judged on the efficacy of these piece designs by major corporations like Chick-fil-A, right? That were looking at this stuff that they were doing. Very exciting. And those bright minds, because I had a chance to talk to some of them because they were there for the whole forum, they were excited about mail. They're excited about that tangible, that physical component with that. They certainly grew up in a digital world. That's part of it. They're Gen Z for that demographic. So their whole world has been around digital. But when you show them that physical piece and what it can do, that magic, that interplay between the two, that's explosive. So they get that part of it, Dave. That was exciting. So a lot of the people that were at MPF, again, users of the software, what I would call influencers, people that are postal affairs industry like myself, Not as many mail owners. That's where we saw mail owners though at the D-Scoop event in Long Beach. And Dave, that's where I found it very interesting talking to owners of these mail service providers or print service providers and how they're doing things differently. We talked to one mutual customer that they are including postal promotions and informed delivery as standard components to their mail pieces. Everybody.
Say it again, Chris. Say it again in case people missed that.
Yeah, so this is the game changer. This has really opened my eyes with this, Dave. When they've got a customer and they deal primarily in real estate mailings, that customer will, when they go to design the mail piece, it automatically is going to have a QR code on it. It's automatically going to be enrolled in informed delivery. It's automatically going to have attributes on the piece that qualify for promotions. You don't get to pick and choose what you don't want. It's going to be baked into that. So it's part of the piece. It's part of the value. And I got to tell you, they're doing very well. So and it's not just with the postage discounts, they're showing that value in the piece and their customers are seeing the return on investment. So I was super excited and thrilled to hear how that's part of the normal process for this particular mail service provider. Listen, you're already enrolled. I'm going to do this. Yep. So I think that's very innovative, and I think they are definitely thriving, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Let me just underscore that real quick, Chris, here for the folks that are here. I know some of you, Josh, I'm thinking of you as an example here. Hopefully you can see me waving at you here on the screen, and others who we've had these conversations, Chris, you and I've had the conversation with the community here that some folks, when they think about selling omnichannel to their customers, there's one group who think of it as something additional that I have to sell to the customer. And then there are others who are like, you know what, this is my competitive edge. I'm going to offer this in all of my mail. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I want to make it better? Why wouldn't I want to make it measurable? Why wouldn't I want to make it trackable? So this particular mutual customer that Chris is referring to is in that second group. They're just building it into everything they're doing. They're not even making it an option for their customer. Why wouldn't you want to deliver that level of service to your customer folks? That's kind of what we're getting at here. So Chris, thanks for kind of that overview. Anything else you wanted to add on D-Scoop?
The other thing that I heard at D-Scoop that I didn't hear too much at MPF, but it's certainly been discussed there in the past is artificial intelligence. We heard a lot about AI, Dave, at D-Scoop, and that's important for our listeners to understand. AI is coming into the direct mail space, into our industry, whether it's a piece design aspect with it, maybe it's the approval process from the Post Service. We're very encouraged that Heather Lewis at the USPS and her team are using artificial intelligence to try and check to make sure that informed delivery ride-along image qualifies or it doesn't have anything offensive on it or whatever with it. But I think there's an opportunity to leverage AI in our space to do some things that are very innovative for stronger call to actions and ways to accelerate an opportunity for the attribution of the piece. That's what this is all about, accelerating attribution. And I think AI is going to have a large part of this as we go forward.
Yeah, there was a question that came in advance around how MindFire and BCC are using AI. I've saved that for the end, folks. I will share with you what we see some of our leading customers doing and how we're leaning into that. But Chris, without further ado, let's talk about the July price changes. Most of you should know by now, but in case you don't, listen up. Now's your time to get the inside update from Chris and ask your question. So Chris, take it away.
Thanks. So first of all, these were approved. So I don't have to say pending approval. It's already been approved. The Postal Regulatory Commission approved this. And it was interesting how their clarification on it. Hey, we reluctantly don't agree with the Postal Service being as aggressive on some of these price changes as they are, but hey, there's nothing we can do about it. I don't know if I agree with that. The PRC's got a lot more authority than I think they realize or are leveraging. That aside, let's talk about the numbers. The numbers are quite simply this, and I think the Postal Service really didn't do the best job. In as much I like Sharon Owens very much with the Postal Service, I think it would be an easier way to understand. So let me take a crack at this. On July 13th, everybody's going to be paying on average 7.4% more in postage, whether that's marketing mail or first class mail. And we're just going to show marketing mail here on the slide, but first class is the same. 7.4% on average is what you're going to be paying incremental for postage. Your mileage will vary, as you can see on that, whether you're doing letters, flat, saturation, etc. But that's on average where we're at. Now, if you are doing promotions, if you are taking advantage of work share, if you are doing the incentives, you should stay in that 7.4 to 8% price increase. But if you're not doing them, if you're not doing promotions, if you're not doing informed delivery, if you're not doing all these other things, you're looking at 10.4%. Okay, again, on average. This is important to understand, folks. I've heard price discrimination. I've heard that phrase. I've also heard the haves and have-nots. It could not be more clear. Another way to put it, if you're not doing any promotions or helping your customers take advantage of these promotions, then you're going to be carrying on your shoulders the increase in postage for the Postal Service going forward. And then that bag of bricks is going to get heavier and heavier as the Postal Service goes forward. Now, I understand the additional 3.3% increase in postage, that blue at the very top of the stacked graph, is something that's caught a lot of the industry off guard.
Yep.
That additional pricing authority was buoyed because of the success of the mail growth campaign and some of the promotions in 2024. But you know what, folks? It's a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, hey, that's working. It's changing the narrative about mail pieces. It's increasing attribution. It's actually growing mail volume. Those that participated in the mail growth incentive did put more mail pieces in the system, billions more pieces. On the other hand, yes, it gives the Postal Service additional pricing authority. Do they have to use all of it? No, they could have banked it. But as it stands right now, the price adjustments that's in front of the PRC that were approved included the full amount with them.
Yep.
So this is the situation we have going forward. What I want everyone to do is sharpen those pencils. We've got to get into mitigating the price increases while simultaneously adding that value adder strategy as I talked about before.
So let's take a beat here, Chris. We were all at that webinar with USPS. Yep. We work very closely with them. And I think what everyone should see is that you, as an excellent communicator, Chris, I will just say that for the community here, right?
Thank you.
Have made it as crystal clear as possible what we're talking about here relative to the 7.4 and the 10.4. But I want to ask the audience, was that helpful? Did that help clarify? Leanne's already saying, David, the way Chris said it was much more clear than the USPS speakers. I can only speak for me, but yes, I'm clear here. Folks, come on, I want to know, does this make sense to you? Carolyn, I see, is also giving the virtual nod. Was this helpful? And if you have any questions, I want to make sure you ask Chris those questions now and get that clarity. We're going to move on to the next piece here. There is a little bit of good news though, Chris, right? So take us into this here.
So in addition to the prices being approved by the Postal Service, and by the way, again, that includes removal of the NDC discount, the National Distribution Center, and I know that's a pain and that's a whole other webinar conversation in and of itself, but there are some positive things that came out of this price adjustment, and that includes the promotions for 2026 and something that's going to happen this calendar year. Yep. Catalog promotions. We've had an incentive for catalogs for a little while now, where the Postal Service was offering a very small percentage if you could identify in the mailing statement that particular mail piece classifies as a catalog. And as a reminder to our listeners, a catalog's definition now are 12 pages bound together with a list of items for sale. That's it. Okay. I got 12 pages, they're bound together, and it's got a list of items for sale. That's a catalog. Okay. Yep. Now, the Postal Service needs our help in identifying what those pieces are that are catalogs on the mail statement. Why? Because they're measuring price elasticity. Dave, we've been arguing back and forth with the Postal Service for a long time. If you raise prices, volume's going to go down. And yes, we're seeing some of that. Yep. That implies that there's an elasticity to mail pieces. But you know what? It's fluctuating a little bit when we start talking about direct mail. Okay. Some direct mail pieces have gone down because of the price increases, but some have actually buoyed a little bit. Catalogs are one of these areas that the Postal Service is really tuned into. And so they're shifting from a catalog incentive to a catalog promotion. And I know for those of us, the lay people on this stuff, it sounds the same. A promotion and incentive are the same. From a legal aspect with the Postal Regulatory Commission, they're completely different. Apples and oranges, folks. So a promotion allows the Postal Service a lot more latitude in what they're doing. And they're offering a 10% discount. I've never seen anything like this.
Nope.
10% discount. If it's a catalog. If you use recycled paper or paper that could be recycled, the sustainability, it's 11%. If you're doing informed delivery with it, it's 12% or 12.5% if you want to get that 0.5% for the mail service provider. Think about it, 12.5%. You've just absolutely cut away that price increase in July, but more importantly, you've increased the value, and it kicks off in October and it's going to run for 9 months, folks. So start thinking about how you can help your customer get their mail pieces to qualify as a catalog now, so they can take advantage of this on October 1st.
Chris, you and I could probably make a full-time living just speaking at PCC events. I know that I've done 2 in the last couple of weeks, and I know you've done the same. At the last PCC event I spoke at, one of the things I told the audience is that for some of you who are doing direct mail for your customers and traditional 8.5 by 11 or whatever it is that you're doing for them, I encourage you to think creatively here. Is there any way that you can repurpose what you're doing in the form of what qualifies for a catalog to be able to take advantage of what Chris just described? Are you getting that? Drop a 1 in the chat if you're getting what I'm saying. Can you be creative? Can you think of a way to do that following the guidelines and the rules that are here? You get that? Drop a 1 in the chat if you understand what I'm saying. Chris, I'm going to move on here now to the other piece of good news, the 2026 promotions. Tell us what we need to know here.
The most important thing is, again, as I mentioned, that catalog incentive, that's going to continue on for 9 months. Starts in October. It's going to continue to next year. And you're spot on, Dave, on what you were saying before, right? If you're working with a customer, you got 10 pages that are bound together like that. Hey, what do I need to do to get 2 more pages in this thing to get that discount, right? So this is an opportunity to start thinking strategically on that. But don't lose sight of the fact that there's other promotions. And in fact, they get better. Okay, what was a 3% discount for promotions for integrated technology? Now that goes to 5%, right? Tactile, sensory, interactive, TSI, as they sometimes call it. That goes up to 5%. Continuous contact, that's 5%. First class mail, advertising, 5%. Okay, so all of the bases have gone up. And remember, that's just the base promotion. You start adding on the sustainability part with that, using that Silvamo paper, for example, the intelligent paper that they've rolled out, which is very exciting, adding on the informed delivery component, with that. Now you're into that 7 to 7.5% increase. And remember what I said about July. Hey, everybody's going to see their postage go up on average 7.4%. Not if you're doing this, okay? If you're doing these promotions, that helps you to mitigate that price increase, but more importantly, you're adding value to the mail piece. We can measure that. We can measure that. And by the way, when I've said this before, there's a very low bar to qualifying for a lot of these pieces. I've been to your plants. I've seen the pieces you're producing. I receive them in my mailbox, right? And I can see these pieces are qualifying, okay? Very easy to qualify for this stuff. So I need you to put your thinking cap on. You could have the conversation with the customer about what you need to do with that. Maybe you're going to lead the pack, like we heard with our mutual customer that's just automatically doing this, right? They know what the minimum barrier is to get into an integrated technology with maybe a voice assisted device or a TSI component with a raised area of interest or something on that. They can take advantage of that. They know what 5% feels like. They can see that they feel that in that mail piece. That's one of my favorite things to do. Can you feel that? That's what 5% feels like, right? So start thinking about that to add that into it. And I'll tell you, continuous contact, that's still a big game changer. There's a lot of you that are working with customers that have multiple pieces that are building on it. Folks, doing it now. Let's get you registered for these promotions.
Yeah, I'll let you in a little secret here, folks. Just keep this between us, okay, friends? I know we're all friends here. I was just talking to a customer last week, and they were outlining the campaign flow for me that they were pitching to their customer, and it had 3 or 4 touches to the same group. And I said, well, I'm sure you're going to be looking at that 5% discount next year for continuous contact. And the guy said, what?
Yeah.
And this is a major mailer, and they don't know about it.
Yeah.
Not right. But you folks, you're here. You're ahead of it. You got to take advantage of it. Chris, you agree with me on that?
100% agree with you. Like I said, I can see these pieces, right?
Yeah.
Even within NPF, right? With the National Postal Forum, again, being on the board of directors. That's part of the conversation that I have with our marketing team. As you're sending out postcards to people to get them to come to NPF, please make sure that you're working with a service provider that's taking advantage of these, right? I'm a big fan of walking the talk, man. If we're going to talk about these promotions, we need to be doing it as well. And I would encourage, and I've said this last year, I'll say it again this year, start by looking at the pieces you're producing already. I guarantee you that if you're a mail service provider or a print service provider, you're already producing pieces that qualify. Look at what the requirements are. Start creating a catalog of those pieces that qualify so that you're prepared to get your customers down the right path to get this stuff. But again, it's not just about the postage prices and mitigating that. It's adding value to the piece. That's the game changer here, folks. Adding value, getting that attribution of the piece higher.
Was that helpful, folks? Did you learn something there? I want you to drop a 1 in the chat if you picked up something there from Chris's inside update there on USPS. Drop a 1 in the chat if you gained a new idea or insight there. Chris, we're going to transition now into talking about informed delivery and how that's the on-ramp here into the omnichannel world. In order to help us understand where you're all at with this, I'm going to have, who is it? Suzanne, I think, run a poll here because we want to know how many of you are using informed delivery and what kind of volume you've done in informed delivery in terms of campaigns. Suzanne, if you can run that poll, there we go. It should be on your screen now, folks. Please take a second here. How many of you are using it for 1 to 5 campaigns, 6 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 plus? Neutral, I think it should be you're in neutral right now is what that means. So you're not doing it, right? Is that what we mean there? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, folks, come on. I want to see you guys get out the vote here. We got almost half of you having participated. This is interesting.
This is really interesting. Maybe to clarify this too, Dave, I would even go so far as say within the last year, right? Within the last year, we didn't put a time frame on this, but I'm just curious because there are a lot, to your point, right? There's a lot of people like informed delivery. What is that?
Yeah.
Or I've heard about it, or maybe even I have it. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I don't and stuff.
Todd, stick around. I see Todd saying I can't get my sales team to get my clients interested in these promotions. Todd, there's a disconnect there. Stick around. Let's talk about that during the real-time Q&A because we want to help. I'm going to leave this up for 5 more seconds, folks. If you haven't voted, please vote. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Suzanne, let's go ahead and share these results with everyone for just a moment. Suzanne is right on top of it today. Suzanne, thank you for that as always. 25% of you are stuck in neutral. That is the second largest category, it looks like. And then the other group are those that are doing 21 plus. Interesting.
Yeah.
33%.
Half, right? Look at that, Dave. Not doing it at all or doing less than 5, maybe 5 campaigns, maybe only if the customer insists on having it done. Maybe they talk about it or whatever. But that's what I'm taking out of this is about half of you that are on the webinar here really are not leveraging this. The other half seem to be doing more of them with their customers. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Very interesting.
Todd, I'm curious which group you fall into and maybe take a snapshot of this with your phone, Todd, for your sales team and just show them, look, folks, this is what we're up against in terms of the competitive landscape here. So thank you for bringing that up, Suzanne. Let's go ahead and take that down. We appreciate your input there. Everyone, thank you for giving us the vote here and giving us some insight. Now, a couple of things here that we want to get into in terms of understanding informed delivery as a digital on-ramp. Some of the questions that came in advance, I saw something from Tony saying, what are the general benefits of informed delivery? Paul was asking, how can BCC help us quickly create these campaigns? Is there automation that we can do? And this is perfect timing, folks, because this is where we feel that many of you have an opportunity to start doing omnichannel, or maybe you're already doing it and just not considering it as omnichannel, given the power that informed delivery brings. Chris, in case some folks are new to informed delivery, I am surprised every single day of the week that some folks have no idea what informed delivery is. Give us a quick overview and also the latest intel that you have from within USPS headquarters.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Again, what is informed delivery? Well, quite simply, it's an email, a daily email from the Postal Service for what is coming into the mailbox, okay, that day. So this is consumer facing, right? So this is the end recipient on the mailbox. So 168 million delivery points, right? To have the potential of being able to see what's coming in their mailbox with this. Right now, as it stands, about a third of the nation, we'll talk about the distribution here soon, but about a third of the nation has access or is actively participating in this. What's important about this is it gives a digital picture of the mail piece. That picture can either be what the Postal Service scanned on their processing equipment. So rather than just scanning the barcode, they've widened the field of view for those cameras. And then you get a grayscale picture of what the outside of the mail piece might look like. Maybe you get a color replacement image. You can see here on the example on the little cell phone here. Maybe you get a ride-along, what the Postal Service calls it, which by the way is a terrible name for it, but there's a ride-along with it where you can click on that picture and that allows you to begin to interact with the sender of the mail piece. So you already begin to have a digital interaction that builds what I call anticipation of arrival. I'm more likely to look at the mail piece or engage with the mail piece if I've already got awareness it's going to be there and I can start doing something with it. Yeah. And the best part, I was just going to say, Dave, the best part of all of this is the cost. It's free.
How much is it, Chris? How much is it?
Free. The Postal Service doesn't charge you. It is free. Here's it. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment, right? The Postal Service lost $9.5 billion last year. They're going to lose over $6.5 billion this year. Okay, now a lot of that is accounting numbers and stuff with it. But here is a service, Postal Service, that's so bullish on this idea of bringing physical and digital, or phygital, as you said, Dave, together, that they're willing to offer this service for free. For those of us that are astute enough to leverage this as a value add to our customers. And remember,
Yep.
we talked about one of our mutual customers. This is included. This is just
Yep.
normal to offer. If you want a color picture, they charge more for it, but you're going to get the grayscale, right? So how does it work? Because I often hear this, Dave, when I talk to customers about this. I think some of the ones that are in the chat here are saying, Chris, this is great. I love it. You're talking about promotions. I see the discounts. I need 3 answers. 1, how do I do it? 2, how do I sell it? 3, how do I make money on this thing? Okay, so I get it. That's what we're exploring together. But let me start with the first one. How does it work? How do I do this? For informed delivery, you need to register the campaign with the Postal Service, okay? Now, as I said before, it's free. It does take a little bit of an effort. You have to actually log into the business customer gateway. You have to register that, the CRIDs and MIDs and STIDs, oh my, right? You have to put all that stuff into the system and make sure that the Postal Service knows. Why do you have to do that? Because as they scan those barcodes, they need to know where to provision the information that goes along with that. Then as the Postal Service is scanning the barcode, they're scanning the image. And as I said before, on average, it's about 7 times that it's being scanned. Now, they'll take that last scan event, and then that's what's going to go out on that email. Okay, so that's that last big moment, that big push forward, it gets in your mailbox. Talk a little bit later on how we fill in the gap with priming it. The Postal Service has to match the barcode to the piece, and that's a key part of it. And then the information coming across. And I touched on this, Dave. 1/3 of the country, roughly 1/3 of the country has this. So look at this map, this heat map of where it's all over the place, right? Even in northern Minnesota, don't you know where I'm from, right? They're doing informed delivery, okay? And you're able to get that information. Think about the reach and the power. This is what I want you folks on this webinar to show your customer. I'm going to give you more attribute. Attribution is the battleground for direct marketers, isn't it, Dave?
Yep.
It's all about showing that attribution. You got it now. I'm gonna excite and delight you with the physical piece when the recipient receives it. I'm going to build anticipation of arrival with a free informed delivery. All it takes is effort to want to add it and registering it for the business customer gateway.
Yeah, one of the questions I saw in advance that came in was about enrollment trends. Specifically, the person said, I'm seeing a decrease in the number of individuals enrolled to receive informed delivery emails. Are others noticing the same? And I would say, no, that's not the case. There might be local fluctuations, but I think what you're seeing here from the national trend is we're at 72.9, so 9 million over where we were last year in 2024, and another 5.5 million households. So the growth is there. I think the key is understanding that even if growth rates maybe have slowed because we're starting to penetrate the US, you're still talking about reaching over 1/3 of all US households. Chris?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I want you to stop and think of a little while here, mail service providers, right? Attendees on this webinar. We're so used to charging for print services based on the ink, the paper, the binding, the production, okay, the physical aspects of it. For a moment, start to put on your hat as if you are in the digital world. They charge based on attribution. Google charges you based on attribution. Google charges you more to have your logo higher on the search engine results. That's search engine optimization, it's called, your SEO. So yeah. I would have to pay Google a premium price to get my logo, my company name, at the top of the search list. You know what? Informed delivery, if you take the time to put a color picture of the mail piece, you go to the top of the email.
Yep.
You get preferential placement on that.
Yep.
So as you start to show your customer, hey, thank you for letting me prepare this highly crafted, this carefully crafted, highly targeted mail piece that I know people are going to value. What if I gave you an extra impression on that piece? What if I gave you extra insight and a heads up on that and increased the response? Oh, and by the way, I can take a color picture of your piece and upload that and get a preferred placement on the email. Man, that is game changing. And that's the value add that you have accessible to you for free. Okay, for free, folks. So I really want you to think about, how do I add informed delivery for everything I'm doing? I don't even care about the class of mail, first class marketing mail, whatever. Add informed delivery to it, because that's a way you can tangibly show value to your customer. And then we can start charging for it, right? Now you can start, you have that foundation, that gravitas to start charging, because it works. Direct mail works. Marketers are smart about this, Dave. 74%. They're saying, yeah, I get the best ROI. The Association for National Advertising, ANA, said there was over 100% response rate. Single largest channel, direct mail. for an ROI. And when you add digital to it, it goes up, right? They go together. That's why we say digital is part of it. So informed delivery not only gives you that chance to show that piece, you're now in the digital world. You've now taken a step into omni-channel possibilities and potentials for you. Mail campaign process, this is a step. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I saw folks here in the audience, James asking if he can get the slides and the material here. Folks, if you would like that, drop the word slides in the chat, because that's part of what we're trying to do here, folks, is give you the resources that you need, not only for you, not only for your team, but also to help you in front of your customers. So if you'd like the slides, drop the word slides in there, just so we get a sense, and ask nicely, folks, and maybe we'll help you out here. Chris, tell us about, very quickly, what is what are the steps that are required when you create a campaign like this?
It's really 4 steps, right? You can count on one hand. So it's, you've got to plan it, right? This is where you make sure you got the information from your customer to be able to register on the business customer gateway. You've already got the information, by the way, when you're doing the mailing. It's just making sure you've got it accessible so you can go ahead and register that campaign. 2, you've got to put it into the business customer gateway, get that information in there. 3, you need to start now tracking that information. Those pieces are going to come back. That information is going to come back from the Postal Service. Informed delivery is provisioned through the informed visibility channel, okay? And BC Software is actively working on how we bring that in through our track and trace so we can make that available. But I don't want you to stop and wait for that, right? I need you in informed delivery. We're going to catch up to you. We're going to continue to work on that together with you, but I got to get you into this, because this is the way, again, you can show the customer that's going to work. And then ultimately, we need to get into that post-campaign analysis, right? Because the customer is going to ask, show me, right? Show me how you're doing this. And that's a big part of it, is we have that ability now.
Chris, from having done this myself, from having helped hundreds of customers do this, and from having spoken to probably thousands of you about this, I know that there's a group of you who are thinking, hey, this is a lot of work. There's other of you who know that it's really not a lot. I could probably get my 8-year-old to do it. It's really not that complex. But I understand everyone is busy, and you don't necessarily have the skills and the resources and the people sitting around to create these campaigns. So I'm going to ask Suzanne to throw another poll on the screen here. If you're not doing informed delivery, or if you would like to scale it up, if we offered a service that would help you do this, that would do it for you as a turnkey service, would that be useful? So Suzanne, go ahead and throw that poll here on the screen. If we offered this as a service, Chris, I'll let you talk to this here in just a moment, but I want everyone to turn to their screen. Would this be of service to you? Chris, why are we asking this?
Because we view ourselves as an extension of your mailing operation, right? Many of you know our customer support. In fact, actually, it's legendary with BCC Software. We've got phenomenal customer support because we know our products, but more importantly, we know mail. All of our customer support reps, the 24 support reps we have, they are mailpiece design professionally certified. They have to get their mailpiece design certification within their first year of working at BCC Software, because we want to be an extension of your mailing operation. In this situation, if you're saying, look, Chris, I'm there with you. I want the informed delivery. I want to do this, but man, I don't have the resources. I don't have the time. I understand that it's relatively straightforward, but man, if you guys could help me do this, yeah, that would be awesome. You would help me, right? I want to offer that. I want to find a way to be able to make that happen so that we are the extension of your mailing operation. And this is one way that I think we can do it. By the way, that's the other benefit that I think we've got at BCC. I've got all these certified support reps. The Postal Service, Heather Lewis, I mentioned her name before. She's got people on her side. You know what? We should be talking to each other. We should be working together so that as you're getting those pieces with BCC, you're showing us what we're doing. We can be that speed approval process to get you in for the promotions, get you into the informed delivery, and adding that value on the mail piece.
Yep, absolutely. Folks, I see a number of you have voted. I'm going to leave it up for another 2 seconds, 5 seconds, let's say here. Please look at your screen. Give us the feedback here. Would this be useful to you? I'm going to leave it up for 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Suzanne, close that down and let's share the results with everyone if you can. So basically about 70% of you say yes, or maybe some help with this. There's a small minority of you who say no. I would be curious, those who said no, you got it under wraps. Maybe you're not selling it. What is it that's leading you to say no? That's helpful intel. Thank you, Suzanne, for having that up there on the screen. If you want to pull that down, we will now move into part 3 of our time together here today. So This next session is going to, or this next section is going to answer one of the most important questions that we got, which is how does this partnership between BC and MindFire support our journey into multi-channel, omni-channel workflows? And Chris, how do we as service providers, how do we demonstrate the ROI across all of these channels to our clients? And I think the easiest way to answer this, folks, is to use a visual. I'm going to bring that up here on the screen in just a moment to help you understand how you are going to do that and how exactly you will have that conversation with your clients. Instead of just saying, hey, trust us, the mail worked. Now you're showing concrete data, but it starts up here. It starts with shifting your mindset from thinking about the price, which is certainly important, but pivoting from price to purpose. Let me show you what I mean by that. If you look at the screen, folks, I want everyone to look at the screen right now. As I walk this through with you here, no one is mailing. None of your customers are mailing just for the heck of it, right? They're after some sort of business objective. Often that's leads. And most importantly, that's likely sales. They need revenue, right? So that's what you're getting with BCC and MindFire together. Let me show you what I mean here. If you think about the dashboard that you're looking at here and you envision yourself, if you're a salesperson, if you're a business owner, in front of your customer, showing them the value of what you're doing with omnichannel direct mail, this is one of the easiest ways to articulate that. If you look at the screen going from left to, this is imagine a campaign dashboard for a campaign that you've run for your customer. Going from left to right in these columns here, we're following the mail along in its journey from you to the recipient, to the individual who's actually taking action on that mail piece. You're seeing the mail tracking. You're seeing the informed delivery, which Chris just talked about. And I'm going to go into it a little bit more detail here in just a moment. I just want to orient you to what you're seeing. Then you're seeing the responses that are being captured, the people that are scanning their QR codes. You're seeing the leads. And then most importantly here on the right-hand side, this is where the attribution to the purpose of the piece. This is where we're getting into what the heck are we mailing for anyways? It's to drive revenue, and what we're seeing here on the right-hand side. So all of this is designed to help you figure out what's actually working and driving the results that your customer is looking for. Which list is working? Which creative or mail kit or version is driving the results that we need? Which segment out of our data, which decile of data is driving the results that we need? So that, put simply, folks, you can do more of what's working for your customer and stop the stuff that's not. That's the promise of data-driven direct mail in an omni-channel world, is to be able to remove those blinders and do more of what's working. Now, as you think about these columns here, across all of these different tables that I'm showing you, 3 sample tables: response by list, response by mail kit, and response by decile down there at the bottom, you're able to see the mail tracking information. This is pulling from Track and Trace, BCC Track and Trace, right? Then we start to get into the thing of the mailbox, the first digit activation point, the informed delivery email that you spoke about, Chris. Yep. How many of those were opened? How many of those were, we know by name, clicked on and show you that it Chris Lien specifically or Christopher O'Brien specifically that opened or clicked. And then we're starting to see, once that mail piece is in Chris Lien's hand, how many people scanned the personalized QR code or typed in the Pearl, right? So that you're able to tie back the response that you're generating for your customer back to that mail piece, back to the list, back to the mail kit, back to the decile, any facet of data that you're measuring, totaling those responses to start to understand what kind of response rates you're getting. And then ultimately, the revenue attribution. This is the purpose of the piece. It's to drive results, to drive revenue. Chris, I'm going to pause for a second. Anything you want to add to that there?
The 2 things that jump out at me and what I love about this report, Dave, is first of all, it means that you're no longer in the backseat. You are now actively part of the revenue attribution. You're part of the journey. You didn't just bake the barcode and miss out on the banquet. You are on the journey all the way with your customer. So you are now able to be an active component for that overall efficacy of the campaign. And the second part I like about this, and maybe it's because I'm a child of the 80s and growing up listening to Janet Jackson and stuff, but This absolutely is what have you done for me lately? Okay. This is the report, if you know the song. This is the report to put in front of your customers. Like, look, this is what I've done. I've enhanced the value of the piece. I can show you how that piece, that physical mail piece, created and built upon that journey all the way through. This is powerful. This is how you can actually sell and make money on this, folks.
Yeah, one of the things I often see when I'm helping folks present this to a customer or speaking to a print sales team, they look at some of the results, like the response rates, are like, holy cow, how does this happen? If you know anything about direct mail, I know I see stats, 3%, 4% average response, but in many industries, 0.5% generates hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in revenue. That's the honest truth. 0.5% in response. So how are you showing MindFire or BC that we're getting an 8% response? It's not magic, folks. There's a framework. This is what you get when you work with BCC and MindFire and the technology here. There's a framework that leverages the unique strengths of both BC and MindFire to create a workflow that brings BCC's postal expertise and mail preparation technology. That's the creating the audience portion that you're seeing up here on the upper left-hand corner, along with the priming of the mailbox, which is the digital integration and attribution analytics, so that everything is working together to ultimately drive engagement and build those rich first-party data insights that you're now able to make data-driven decisions from. So taken together, we're covering the entire customer journey. One of the questions I saw come in advance was from one of the registrants saying, we need to keep things simple. Some of the MSPs shy away from this kind of offering like you're seeing here on the screen because they think there's too much heavy lifting. And I get that, folks. I think what I want you to remember is that you don't have to start with everything out of the gate. That's why we're making this as simple as possible to say, hey, start with the intelligent mail barcode, tie that then into the informed delivery and the postage promotions. And then from there, you can start to take the steps that you need to continue to provide the results that your customers are looking for. You don't need to do everything out of the gate. The other thing is working with BCC and MindFire. That's what we're here for. The beauty of our partnership is so that you don't have to become the expert day one on every single piece, every single campaign, every single client that you're doing work for. We'll handle the complexity so that you can focus on what you're doing best, which is serving your clients. So now, Chris, before we transition to the Q&A, which I would like to do next, I know we have one more question for everybody. I'm going to have Suzanne bring that up on the screen here. I want to get to all of your questions, all of the real-time questions, and there were a lot that were submitted in advance. But I want to know, based on what Chris and I have shared with you here today, Suzanne, go ahead and bring up the poll. Are you interested in speaking to someone about taking potentially the next step, going from step 1 to step 2 on that roadmap here? So take a moment. Chris, as people are answering there, what can we do to help folks who are interested in taking that next step?
I think, first of all, the slides. I know a lot of people are looking for the slides. We definitely want you to have those. The second thing is, again, the promotions. The Postal Service has the information on the promotions. They're a little bit hard to find. BCC's made it easy for you. Go to our website. We've got everything where you need for the promotions and the incentive dashboard. You can download those quickly to understand that. And the third part is, I said before, we're an extension of your mailing operation. Being a BC Software customer means you're part of the group that has access to our certified customer support reps. We want to hear from you. This is a journey, folks. We're all together on a journey, and that journey is the result of making every mail piece count and helping that happen. I said at the very beginning, Dave, public-private partnership, right? 250 years of mail delivery in this nation. Public-private partnership. That's what this is all about. The Postal Service needs our help. We need to increase the value of mail, and together we're going to create a service to help everyone survive and thrive. That's what we're trying to do here, folks, being together on it, on this journey with enhancing mail pieces.
So I'm seeing the results here. I'm going to leave them open for another few seconds. Suzanne, folks saying yes, some are saying no, some are saying not yet, which is totally understandable. We're here to bring you along in that journey. We're going to continue leaning into events like this and helping the community as much as we can. We're not charging you a penny for this today. This is all value that we're trying to bring because we believe in the industry. Suzanne, leave it up for another 5 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and bring that down. 3, 2, 1. We will follow up with you folks. Those of you who are looking to discuss further, happy to answer any questions now as we move into the real-time Q&A. We're going to leave this up for about another 8 minutes. If you have to drop, folks, totally understand, but stick around. This is where some of the best discussion arises from your real-time questions. So if you dropped a question in the chat that we haven't answered, copy and paste it, put it back in. We want to make sure we answer your questions there. As we're doing that, one of the things that I saw in advance, Chris, is somebody asked about what does the typical implementation timeline look like for someone who wants to get started with Omnichannel? How would you answer that, Chris?
Registering for form delivery campaign, that can take 30 minutes or less, right? Again, you've got it. The biggest part is just having all of the information, the data to be able to register it in with the business customer gateway. That's if you're doing it manually. There are other ways to do it electronically and digitally. We are actively exploring that. We want to make it as simple and easy as possible, but this is where we need this feedback and working with our customers in the industry to make sure you're going forward with it. Once you're doing that informed delivery and it's a standard part, you're already in the omnichannel game. Because like I said, you've got the entry when the piece was inducted, where you put it into the mail stream. You've got the informed delivery data, so you can see the final part. Let's prime the mailbox along the journey. And that's where the MindFire technology comes into play. This is why BC and MindFire are working together. We want to help you step 1, 2, 3. As you accelerate your attribution and continue to go up that curve that we showed at the beginning, the ROI, the return on investment for your pieces, your customers' pieces is going to go up, and it'll give you the gravitas to be able to charge more. Think about, this is my price if you don't want to have any increased attribution. This is my price if we do the informed delivery, etc. This is what you can have if you want 10%, you want 15% response rate. This is the price for it, right?
Yep.
And there are mail service providers that are already charging just like that.
Yep. I see Frank saying, classify the MSP target firms by the services offered. Chris, do you understand Frank's question? Or is that a comment?
It's just grouping in. I think the opportunity there is to begin to promote, hey, I'm not just a mail service provider. I'm part of the direct marketing opportunity. These are my services I offer. It touches a little bit back on that mutual customer. Look, this is my price for the direct mail piece. This is my price if you want 8 to 10% response rate. This is my price if you want % response rate.
Yep.
Get in the game of the response rate because you now have access to it. And again, as a reminder, the informed delivery, it's free. You should be looking at adding that all the time. It's an easy way to be able to get in that game today.
Yep. I think Frank's saying not all make mail here. That's true, Frank. Yeah, good reminder. Some only guide or process the data. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Folks, ask us your toughest question. Make sure you get it in there. We're going to stick around and make sure we answer as many of these as possible. John in advance asked a question about connecting to a CRM for triggered mailing capability. How does that work with the MindFire, the BCC platform? So John and others who are wondering, one of the most common use cases in that scenario, like a sales instance where a sales team or a dealer network is using Salesforce, adding in customer information, and based on certain criteria, then triggering out direct mail on a daily basis. Sometimes it's sweep, but often it's more quickly. So John, yeah, we've got experience different workflows that look at to find that kind of use case, but very common. Often we see a daily mailing of folks, postcards, whatever kind of mailing they are, based on what's happening there in the CRM, so that the mail is in the mail stream as quickly as possible, as close to the time of interaction between the sales rep and entering that information into the CRM. So it's a very common thing that we see. I see Steve asking for the slides. Yep, Steve, happy to provide that. Chris, another one from Karen here. Karen was asking about running multiple informed delivery campaigns within a single stream. Can you walk us through that capability? Chris, do you understand her question there?
Broken down by mail piece, I'd have to look a little bit more specific into that aspect, or better yet, our customer support team helping to get some guidance on that. But if you've got a commingled mail stream where I've got multiple mailings in there and you got that registered, so that's a possibility. That's why they've got these campaigns. You have to register them individually, and it's going to be broken down based on the CRID and the information that's in that barcode, along with what's in the electronic documentation. So there's a way to be able to have a single commingled mailing, for example, that has multiple campaigns going on with this as you register, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the barcode and what's in the electronic documentation with that. I see we only got a few more minutes left, Dave. I noticed that there's 3 questions in the Q&A.
Yeah, I just pulled that up as well. Yeah, you want to hit those?
Yeah, is this for flats or can it be marketing mail catalogs and stuff? I'm not sure if that was specific to informed delivery. I think the question goes back to the promotion. So the catalog promotion is for flat shaped pieces. Actually, it's for 12 pages bound together of a list of items for sale. Okay. I don't want to relegate it to letter flat or however the Postal Service looks at that, but those are the three key attributes. So look at what would classify as a catalog for that. Again, the benefit for B2B marketers, look, the informed delivery right now is, again, as I said before, consumer faced. The Postal Service is actively working on rolling that out to the business addresses as well. So that gets a little bit more involved because who at your business should be the one that receives those emails. That's part of it, but they're actively working on that. And then the next big area that I really am pushing the Postal Service to get is college and university. I need those young minds, those students, to get that informed delivery information. So we're constantly working on that. But while they're coming up with sort of those small pockets of areas that don't have informed delivery, leverage the ones that are there now.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of them out there, and it's, again, free.
Yep. Chris, I see a question here, two others from Julie. What is the benefit for B2B marketers? Julie, what were we referring to there? If you could just clarify for us, just so we're on board there with answering your question. And then there was an anonymous person. If you can, let us know if you're still here in the chat. Am I understanding correctly that one of the first steps is having QR codes on all pieces? I think, Chris, they're referring to the data-driven omni-channel workflow. Chris,
Right.
What's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's it. And again, the whole point of on this series, and you're right, Dave, we want to do part 3 and then where we're going to go from there, but start tracking the mail pieces. You got to have that data. You need to be in that game. You should have been in that game. I want to get you in there as quickly as we can. 2 is get that informed delivery. Make sure you're leveraging that. It's free. It just takes that level of effort. We'll help you with that. Okay. So we'll provide a service that can help you get there very easily, very cost affordable. And then 3, start looking at omnichannel, because once you do informed delivery, you're in the phygital game. Let's accelerate our attribution possibilities.
You're not going to use your "let's get phygital" line, Chris?
Oh, man.
Yeah, you got them all. So, Julie, you were asking about informed delivery relative to B2B. Chris, that's actually a good question. I know that there was some talk of, and maybe some experimentation with, allowing businesses to sign up for receipt of informed delivery. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Bob Dixon and the team at the Postal headquarters, they've been working on that, trying to find the best way to do that. Because when you stop and think about a business, who at the company should get that informed delivery email?
Right.
Should it be the president? Should it be the secretary? Who should it be? And what if that person leaves the company, right? How do you handle that? The address is still there, the barcode's still going to the right place, but that individual is no longer at that building. So there's some complexity with that they're working around, but they've been making some progress on that part. So stay tuned on that. And as I said before, so in a similar aspect, college and universities, they look like businesses to the Postal Service. So we have to find a way to crack that nut and get into there so that we can get those students to get their informed delivery information as well.
I see a question here from Tyler. I know that you don't have a crystal ball, Chris, but just give us your opinion here. Tyler's asking, do you think the new PMG will give more support to marketing mail, or will the focus stay on parcels? So what's your take on the leadership change?
A little bit of both, Dave. I can tell you, when I talked to Governor Ron Stromwick from the Board of Governors, so he assured us at a postcom meeting that the Board of Governors absolutely did talk to Mr. Steiner, and that Ron himself said that he was very impressed that David Steiner understood mail, understood the value of mail, understood what we do, the industries. He's not coming into this completely green. And where I think Louis DeJoy, who was really focused a lot on parcels and parcel growth and wasn't really tuned into mail until a little bit later when we finally helped him with that part understanding. I think we have a bigger opportunity with Mr. Steiner. I've certainly watched some of his videos, his interviews, things like that, so I'm prepared when I get an opportunity to meet him. And I certainly want to have a relationship with him similar to what I did with the last 5 PMGs. But I'm going to be optimistic that I think we have an opportunity here to do both. Increase the value of the mail and help them come up with a way to be able to grow their parcel business.
Good. I see a question from Betty saying, we already use BCC Track and Trace for one of our clients' campaigns, and of course, have been a BC customer for many years. Interested in finding out if MindFire can be of aid to this customer and others, and maybe open some doors to new customers. I would say, first of all, thank you for your business on the BC side there, Betty. But yes, certainly the opportunity to open doors and to start to have new types of conversations with your customers is something that I see a lot with the combination of BCC and MindFire software together, because it becomes part of that value add strategy that Chris was talking about. So once you and your sales team or your salespeople start to understand the value add strategy here, it certainly opens up a whole host of new opportunities for you to have discussions with your customers. So Betty, If you've got any other questions, please let us know. And folks, I know we're running 3 minutes over. If you have to drop, please say thank you there in the chat if you got value out of what Chris was sharing and out of the webinar today. There's a lot of people that have to come together to make these things happen. So let us know in the chat if you got value, drop some X's and O's. If you have to drop, we'll send you the recording. I want to hit a few more here. Chris, Brianna is asking, Brianna, I don't know if you're still here. Can the partnership support multi-channel workflows that include direct mail, email, SMS, and social media? Are there tools for tracking and attributing ROI across these channels? And how can we demonstrate that to our clients? So Brianna, fantastic question. It's almost like we planted that question there, but we didn't. Yes, the answer is yes. Direct mail, email, SMS, social media, ringless voicemail, wallet pushes, you name it. Every digital channel, along with direct mail as a first-class citizen relative to those channels, is what you can orchestrate in MindFire, end-to-end complete customer journey in MindFire. And are the tools there for tracking and doing the measurement? Yes, I showed you a snapshot of that in today's session, so hopefully that's a little bit more clear. But all of that becomes measurable, trackable to the same data source. Think of it like a customer data platform that's acquiring and tracking information across all of these channels, not just direct mail, but also the digital channels, so that you can make these data-driven decisions to improve the next campaign or to automatically trigger out some other communication based on what's happening in real time. Chris, anything you want to add to that?
No, I agree. Absolutely. And again, remember, each one of those is an incremental touch point. Each one of those is a value add. Each one of those is a way for you to demonstrate that you're in this game for that customer.
Any other questions, folks, here in the chat? Please drop those in. I'm going to do one more here, Jonathan. I know I promised we would talk about AI. How is AI integrated into the Omnichannel engine? If so, how do you use it dynamically to adapt messaging in real time across platforms? Are BCC MindFire utilizing AI? Man, that's a big question. Maybe we should do one session just specifically on that, folks. So much to do there. I would say, in short, Jonathan, to answer your question, there's a number of areas in that 5-piece omnichannel framework where we are employing AI and helping our customers do. One is in the upper left, if you remember that diagram. Maybe I'll bring it back up on the screen. Chris, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back there just so everyone has a frame of reference here. If you look in the upper left-hand side of the screen here, Chris, if you can bring that up, the audience definition, where you define the audience that's going to engage in this campaign. There are a number of ways to get that data into MindFire. Of course, going through BCC and coming into MindFire is one of the most natural ways. The other, though, is using AI and machine learning to model and find lookalikes of your customers' best clients. That's another whole conversation, but basically it's using machine learning to model out and understand what those customers look like so that we can go and find the top 1% of Americans, let's say, that look most like that group. So that's one area. And of course, then you can start sending direct mail to those people. That's one area. The other is exactly what you touched on. Now, with these large language models and the APIs that are available, if you think about traditional variable data print, where you're creating a mail piece, let's say, that's versioned based on different demographic buckets, just simply put, let's say men get one image, women get another, right? With AI now and the capability that all of you have in your hands, this technology, we're starting to help our customers say, all right, based on the mail file, based on the fact that we know Chris is in this part of the country and it has these interests versus Dave, who's on the West Coast and has these other interests, instead of just versioning by bucket, we can actually individualize the text and even the images, the call to action, all of that on the mailer, on the landing page, on the triggered follow-up emails and text messages, so that truly now, folks, we are in a one-to-one world powered by AI. So that's just two examples of two of the spots that we're seeing it. Not to mention, Chris, I know that we're working with USPS and they're working on a lot of AI stuff as well. You want to retouch on that again?
No, I agree. And again, as a reminder, this is a cyclical cycle, right?
Yeah.
AI is looking at what worked and how do I build on that? How do I add more to it? And yes, the Post Service is working on AI. One of the things that they've applied that to is the approval process for pieces and promotions and the informed delivery campaign, that ride along part of that. Because Post Service is sensitive as to how you're preparing that, so you're not sending out something that could be offensive or contrary to their brand. So what would be several hours for somebody to visually approve. Now they can use AI and it's seconds to be able to get that approval. BC, I want our support reps and Postal Service support reps talking together, finding ways to enhance that. And this is why your feedback and your participation in these webinars is important, because that's going to give us that information, the feedback. Because the Postal Service doesn't get a chance to talk to you all directly like that. They talk to us a lot. So it gives me a chance to be able to make sure your voice is heard and we're bringing that information to the Postal Service.
I want to ask all of you a question before you drop off. I see many of you still here. Betty's here. Brianna is here. Derek is here. My friend Pete from down the street is here. Pete, you know who I'm talking to. Ryan is here. Steve England is here. My good friend Steve. I want to ask you all a question. Give us a little feedback here. What's one thing that you jotted down? I was taking notes as well as we were talking here. What's one thing that stood out to you today? Maybe one key takeaway, maybe one new idea, maybe one new way of talking to a customer about your value add strategy. What's something that you wrote down today that stood out to you? Would you do us the gift of giving us that feedback? Not only does it help us, but it also helps enrich the conversation here for those of you who are still here. Peter, you're welcome. He says, great stuff. Jeff says, another helpful presentation with Chris and David. Thanks, gentlemen. Jeff, thank you. But if you would, folks, take a moment. I'm sure some of you are typing right now. What's that key takeaway? What's that thing that stood out to you? Chris, what stood out to you from the questions and the discussion that you saw there in the chat?
I saw, so the two things, the polls, right? The poll was key. Half of the people are really not doing much with the informed delivery. I think maybe that's a question of whether or not they understand how they're going to be able to do it. They just don't have the time. And then the other part of that is 70% on average said, yeah, they'd be interested in help or something like that with it. I think that was key. I think a lot of the folks here, again, many are BC customers. They're anxious about what the next stop is for it. And all those 3, 4, how do I sell it? How do I make money on it? And those are questions that we need to explore together. I can tell you how it's done, and that's a little part of it. I can encourage you to sell it, and that's what I've been talking about, right? Hey, pricing it differently based on the response rate. Making money on it, that's the part where you need to start doing these things, so then you've got the gravitas to charge for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
yep.
It's my little joke on the Janet Jackson thing. Show me, right? What did you do for me lately? This is what I'm able to do for you. And then you start to put in their face that really makes a difference.
How come I don't get that reference, Chris? Am I too young, too old?
Yeah.
Just out of it, I guess, in general.
No. It's an 80s thing. It's an 80s thing. Let's get digital, though. I like that one.
Digital, yeah, let's get digital, baby. Right. Let's get some hats with that.
John. All right.
Leanne, good comment here from Leanne. I'm going to read this out. Thinking through the continuous need to inform, MSPs, salespeople, mail owners about the benefits of informed visibility and informed delivery, in addition to the other elements of omnichannel. This is what stood out to Leanne, of course. Those of us who deal with it all the time assume that this is universally known. Yeah, the expert's curse, right? Clearly it's not. And there has to be a way to chip away at that. Leanne, you're part of the solution here. That's what Chris and I are trying to do by bringing this community together. Kate, my company has been testing informed delivery internally lately. Your information has helped put things into perspective on how important this service will be for our clients. Thank you. Kate, thank you. Betty is saying, really interested in some of the deep discounts we might not be taking advantage of. Yep. Also getting tracking started for more of our clients. Betty, thank you for that. We're here to help. Betty also says, thank you so much for an informative seminar, guys. All right, folks. Hey. If you don't have any other questions, Chris, I'm going to give you the opportunity to bring us to a close here.
All right. I want to thank you, Dave, for allowing me to co-present with you. We're happy that we were able to get this information out. I want to thank all the attendees, most importantly, though. We're on a journey together, as I said before. We want to be an extension of your mailing operation. We want to hear your voice and bring that to the Postal Service to make sure that these promotions are effective, that you're able to leverage them and work with them. We want you to get informed delivery. We'll help you do that, right? I want to help you with that. Get in the game, man. Don't just bake the barcode. Show up for the banquet. Let's work together on that. Let's be part of the response rate, and let's make every mail piece count.
I see a question here from Kate. Will there be a link to resources to explore the discounts further? I want to make sure my team and BCC, let's make sure we get them the resource page that you all have there with all of the information. Also, I don't remember if the webinars, Chris, that you and I did with Silvamo and USPS executives on the promotions and the growth incentive, are those on that page as well?
I think they are, Dave. I think they are. I'm pretty sure that's the idea. And stay tuned, because we're actively working on adding more value to that page. giving you tools. It goes back to one of those questions: how do I sell this stuff, Chris? We're working on a way to be able to help you do that. So stay tuned. We want to make sure that you're equipped and enabled to be able to take full advantage of the promotions and add value to the mail piece.
Chris, my friend, you are, as always, so helpful and so giving to this industry. Thank you for your time. But more importantly, thank you to all of you who are still here with us. Thank you for signing up and for being gracious with your time. The time that you have is your greatest asset, and that you would spend that with us means a lot to us. So thank you all, folks, and we will see you on the next event. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.